There's still time to donate to Comic Relief. To donate £5, £10 or £20, text the word 5, 10 or 20 to 70702. Text costs your donation amount plus your standard network message charge, and 100% of your donation will go to Comic Relief. You must be over 16 and have the bill payer's permission. For full terms, more information, or to donate any amount online, visit bbc.co.uk/Red Nose Day.
On tonight's One Show, Strictly's Anton and Giovanni tell us about their adventures across Spain.
Comedian Catherine Ryan on juggling family life with her return to stand-up.
And we're teaming up with the RHS to launch our Pocket Garden Makeover Prize.
We'll see you at 7.
In half an hour, Roger Johnson has North West Tonight. But first, the main BBC News at 6.
At 6, Vladimir Putin addresses supporters in Moscow after a landslide election win critics say was rigged. In complete command, he told the crowd, hand in hand, we will move forward. Also tonight, 8 men are sentenced after disturbances last year outside a hotel in Merseyside, housing asylum seekers.
Gold medal is going to go to Laura Trott.
Britain's most successful female Olympian, Dame Laura Kenny, is to retire from the track. Targeting the Houthis in the Red Sea, we're on board a US warship.
All this US firepower still hasn't been able to deter them, yet alone defeat them.
And some new street art in North London. Could it be a Banksy?
In the northwest, prison sentences for some of those involved in rioting outside an asylum seekers hotel in Merseyside. And the rotting stink at the landfill site, which is upsetting residents in Fleetwood.
Hello there. Fresh from an election victory that critics say was rigged, Vladimir Putin has been addressing supporters in Moscow's Red Square. He has another 6-year term in office, having already led Russia longer than any ruler since Stalin. The Kremlin says he won more than 87% of the vote, but there was no real opposition, with his main critics either in jail, in exile or dead. So, with such an iron grip on power, why bother with elections at all? It's about claiming legitimacy, say his opponents, for his war in Ukraine. Steve Rosenberg has the latest from Moscow.
Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin!
After the landslide came the love. Vladimir Putin, portrayed by the Kremlin as a national hero at a concert marking 10 years since Russia annexed Crimea.
Да здравствует Россия!
Long live Russia, he cried. Cue the national anthem. And some Kremlin choreography to make it look as if Putin is Russia and Russia is Putin. Earlier, we saw the crowds pouring towards Red Square. Thousands of Russians had been given free tickets for the Putin event. After all, a president who claims to have won 87% of the vote needs a decent audience.
Western leaders have dismissed Russia's presidential vote as neither free nor fair, a stage-managed election. But the Kremlin couldn't care less what the West thinks. It paints a picture of a president who enjoys the overwhelming support of his people.
Down at the Russian Election Commission, they'd counted all the votes and they presented all their figures. So, it's 6 more years of President Putin. But what does that mean for Russia and for the world?
It doesn't mean anything good for Russia, for Ukraine, for the world, because Putin will continue this permanent war. Putin will continue to suppress civil society inside his country, and in that sense he becomes a full-blooded autocrat, dictator.
And yet the direction of travel for Russia under Vladimir Putin is already clear. More confrontation abroad and repression at home. Few here seem to believe that this election will bring a significant change. If it's the same president, Katya says, then I don't think anything will be different. In a country that's been ruled by the same man for a quarter of a century, Russians are starting to forget what change looks like. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, Moscow.
And there's continuing coverage and reaction to the elections in Russia on the BBC iPlayer. A senior member of Rishi Sunak's cabinet says Conservative MPs should stop speculating about ousting the Prime Minister. The Business Secretary, Kemi Badenoch, was speaking after a whirlwind of reports that some MPs want the Leader of the Commons, Penny Mordaunt, to take over before the election. Chris is at Westminster. Chris, there is no prospect, is there, of a determined move against the Prime Minister before the election?
Well, there is a blast of the collywobbles again, Clive, and here's the reason. A growing number of Conservative MPs are scared of losing, but worse than that, scared of being stuffed at the general election. And on top of that, they fret that every time Rishi Sunak attempts to crank a lever politically to improve things, nothing really changes as far as their prospects are concerned. So take the budget and those tax cuts, they stare at the opinion polls, Tory MPs, and think that nothing has changed. And when they look at the prospect of what they might see as good news, managing to get some asylum seekers off to Rwanda, that could happen relatively soon. A fall in inflation, that could happen relatively soon. They find themselves asking, is anyone listening anymore? And then Tory MPs will tell me that Downing Street keeps messing things up. They think of that row about alleged racism, those remarks from a donor last week, and how long, in the view of some Tory MPs, it took Rishi Sunak to describe it as racist, or throwing Lee Anderson out of the parliamentary party, and he went on to defect to Reform UK. They worry that Mr Sunak isn't very good at politics. The Prime Minister's been out and about today in Coventry, saying that things are improving economically, trying to dismiss all of this talk about his future. And yes, plenty of Tory MPs will say to me, the idea of another leader, that is totally bonkers. But a growing number are of the view that contemplating the bonkers isn't as bonkers as it was.
OK, Chris, thank you. Chris Mason, our political editor at Westminster. Britain's most successful female Olympian, Dame Laura Kenny, has decided to retire from cycling. She won 5 Olympic golds and 7 World Championship titles in an extraordinary career, and had been targeting a 4th Olympics in Paris this summer. But she's now changed her mind after the birth of her second child. Here's Dan Rowan.
No British woman in history has savoured as much Olympic success as Laura Kenny.
Well, it went down to the wire, and I can't believe it.
One of the faces of London 2012, she won 2 golds in her first games, but they were just the start of the ride. More than a decade at the top of track cycling brought Kenny 3 more Olympic titles. But now she says she's crossed the line for the final time.
I have decided that I'm going to retire from professional cycling. I always knew deep down that I would know when was the right time. And you're never going to have a perfect time to do it, but I can sit here today and say, now is the right time for me. I've just had an absolute blast, but now is the time for me to hang that bike up.
One half of British sport's golden couple, Laura married teammate Jason Kenny, now the country's most decorated Olympian. They became parents in 2017, but she came back to win at the Tokyo Games, keen to show that athletes could juggle the demands of elite sport and motherhood.
Dominated the race from start to finish.
Since then, Kenny's faced personal trauma, speaking openly about miscarriage and an ectopic pregnancy. Last year, she had her second son, and with just a slim chance of reaching the Paris Olympics, she decided to put family first.
Just the sacrifices of leaving your children and your family at home is really quite big. And the more people ask me what races was I doing, what training camps was I going on, I didn't want to go. And then once I said to Jace, you know, I don't think I want to ride a bike anymore, I started to feel relief then, to be totally honest.
Since arriving here at the National Velodrome in Manchester as a young rider some 14 years ago, Laura Kenny has firmly established herself as a true British sporting legend. But by speaking openly about the pain that she's endured away from cycling, she's ensured that her legacy extends well beyond her achievements here on the track.
But those achievements are formidable. Alongside her 5 Olympic golds over 3 games, Kenny retires having amassed 7 World Championship titles, 14 European titles and 2 Commonwealth golds. Today, another British Olympic legend paid this tribute.
She's never changed, she's always been fun, she's always had an incredibly down-to-earth attitude about it, really made it feel, you know, this is something that other people could aspire to do and aspire to be, and I think she's been so influential and so inspirational for, you know, mothers who have come back, who still want to be in sport but having children, having a family, and she's managed to balance so much.
Kenny's achievements are all the more remarkable given she was born 6 weeks premature with a collapsed lung. Her determination driving her to the very pinnacle of cycling and a place in British sporting history. Dan Rowan, BBC News.
8 men have been sentenced for their part in disturbances last year outside a hotel in Merseyside housing asylum seekers. A protest at the Suites Hotel in Kirkby last February descended into acts of violence, criminal damage and disorder as fireworks, rocks and paving slabs were thrown at the police. Rowan Bridge has that story.
Violence on the streets of Merseyside. The yellow circle shows one of the men sentenced today for his part in the attack on police in a hotel housing asylum seekers. It was sparked by a video appearing to show an asylum seeker asking a teenage girl for a kiss. What started as a peaceful protest descended into hours of trouble. As police try to control the situation, the crowd turns on one of their vans. Officers were pelted with petrol bombs, rocks and fireworks. And these are some of the men responsible. Today they were sentenced for their parts in the disorder. Judge Anthony Watson described the events of the night as sustained and extremely hostile mob violence, which had brought shame on the town of Kirkby, the borough of Knowsley and Merseyside more generally. 3 officers were injured, 1 treated in hospital. More than £83,000 of damage was caused on the night.
It was a really complex and lengthy investigation. You know, there was over 150 hours worth of footage from body-worn video, drone footage, private CCTV that had to be reviewed.
Despite the asylum seekers having been moved from Knowsley, today's sentencing highlights broader tensions that haven't gone away. How to deal with asylum seekers continues to be a contentious political issue. Rowan Bridge, BBC News, Liverpool.
The media regulator Ofcom has ruled that the TV channel GB News broke rules on impartiality by using sitting Conservative MPs as news presenters. Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, Esther McVeigh and Philip Davis all fronted shows in 2023. Ofcom says using politicians in such a way meant the news programmes were not presented with due impartiality. Nottingham Forest have been docked 4 points for breaching Premier League profit and sustainability rules. The sanction is immediate and means they drop below Luton Town into the bottom 3 relegation zone. Laura Scott is here with me. What's the background to this?
Well, the Premier League brought in profit and sustainability rules to try to stop overspending by clubs and encourage financial sustainability. What they found, or the Independent Commission found in this case, was that Nottingham Forest breached the threshold of losses by £34.5 million, and they've been docked an immediate 4 points. Now, the new rules are meant to mean that transgressions are dealt with in the same season, so we should know the outcome when the final ball is kicked of where this season stands, who's going up and who's going down, but there isn't a guarantee of that. And this does have a very real impact on relegation because Nottingham Forest have moved into the relegation zone. We've also seen Everton docked 6 points already this season. They are awaiting the outcome of further charges related to these rules. We've spoken to fans of Nottingham Forest today who say that this is incredibly harsh and unfair, means they can't compete with the bigger clubs. This does leave lots of questions unanswered and a very messy situation heading into the end of the season. The Premier League's case in a 50-page judgment from the Independent Commission was that sporting sanctions are the only way to meaningfully disincentivise overspending. But you've got a situation where a team's fate could be decided by the performance of lawyers in a boardroom, not by players on a pitch.
Indeed. OK, Laura, thank you. Laura Scott there. A man has been arrested and charged with attempted murder after 2 people were shot with a crossbow earlier this month. The woman and a man were attacked in Shoreditch in East London, 10 days apart. Here's Greg Mackenzie.
A community still coming to terms with 2 crossbow attacks on this estate in East London.
Well, as you can imagine, people have been incredibly stressed and traumatised by what's been happening ever since the first incident occurred, which was, I think, on the 4th of March. And then when a second incident occurred, obviously a complete state of shock for the whole estate.
This is the bench where the second attack took place last Thursday, a 20-year-old who was shot in the neck. Last night, a 47-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder. Officers have been searching his property for most of the day. He is currently in custody at an East London police station. Detectives say the arrest was a significant development in their investigation. Both victims have since been discharged from hospital. Greg McKenzie, BBC News.
It is just shy of 6:15. Our top story this evening. Vladimir Putin addresses supporters in Moscow after a landslide presidential election win his critics say was rigged. And coming up, we visit the new Banksy mural that's mysteriously appeared in North London.
And in the Northwest at 6:30, the cyclist Dame Laura Kenny retires. Britain's most successful female Olympian is leaving the saddle for the final time. And the past and the present, Marjorie's memories of air raids and her views on mobile phones.
There's been more targeting of merchant shipping in the Red Sea over the weekend by gunmen from the Houthi movement out of Yemen. Now, the flow of trade through vital sea lanes has been seriously disrupted since Houthi drone and missile attacks began last year, following Israel's assault on Gaza. America and Britain have sent warships to protect merchant fleets, with the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower conducting strikes against Houthi targets for the last 4 months. And Jonathan Beale has been on board.
A US carrier, a potent symbol of American military power. Now being used against Houthi rebels. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, operating in the Red Sea, trying to protect merchant ships and themselves from Houthi attacks. We're the first British media on board since it began this mission, flying scores of sorties round the clock. And it's been relentless.
Yes, yeah, this is probably the most flying I've done on a deployment.
It's the most intense so far.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's every day we're flying a ton. So.
Shuttle Cat 3, stand by. Daylight tells the story of what they've been doing. The bombs and missiles fired at Houthi targets on land, and the drones they've destroyed from the air. On this one carrier alone, they've already used hundreds of munitions. But the Houthis too are developing more sophisticated attacks, posing the greatest threat to the US Navy in recent history.
This is deadly stuff. This is the most since World War II, easily.
What, the most intense?
Oh, very much so. You know, ballistic missiles, anti-ship cruise missiles, UAVs, now USVs or underwater vessels, UUVs. The game's all out there, and we've been doing this for almost 4 months now.
Houthi attacks on merchant shipping began soon after Israel's assault on Gaza. US and UK military intervention since has tried to stop them to protect this key trade route.
These US jets have been flying missions to target the Houthis every single day for months now. And yet all this US firepower still hasn't been able to deter them, yet alone defeat them.
And America believes the Houthis are not acting alone. But there are political concerns about widening this conflict.
We know Iran is in some way backing the Houthis, and like I said, they're doing it via intelligence support, providing targeting. They're also providing resupply of weapons, and they're providing them expertise as well.
Well, you're going after the wrong people then. You should be going after Iran.
Well, that's a policy decision, but the root of this does start with Iran.
The question is, how long can the US maintain this military presence? Jonathan Beale, BBC News, on board the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower.
The EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, says Israel is provoking and using starvation as a weapon of war. A new UN-backed report has warned that 1.1 million people in Gaza, around half the population, are experiencing catastrophic shortages of food. Israel denies it's hampering the delivery of aid. And in the last hour, the Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, says urgent action is needed to avoid a famine. Meanwhile, overnight, Israel's troops raided the largest hospital in Gaza, Al-Shifa, for the fourth time. As Ola Gearin, our senior international correspondent, now reports.
Sheer desperation in Gaza City today, and a tiny window of hope. This crush is to get a few kilograms of flour. Most don't manage it. There's nothing to eat or drink, says Omar. Children are dying. There are massacres when planes drop aid and people die. The EU says Israel is provoking famine and has turned Gaza into a killing ground.
Gaza was before the war the greatest open-air prison. Today is the greatest open-air graveyard. A graveyard for tens of thousands of people, and also a graveyard for many of the most important principles of humanitarian law.
In another district of Gaza City, the sounds of battle. This is the area around Al-Shifa, Gaza's largest hospital.
Oh my God!
Inside their own homes nearby, civilians at risk from Israel's fourth raid on the hospital. Here's the army's heavily edited video of the assault. It appears to show troops coming under fire as they approach the hospital complex. They shoot their way in. Doctors told the BBC 3 patients died because the electricity was cut.
The IDF is conducting a high-precision operation in limited areas of Shifa Hospital. We know that senior Hamas terrorists have regrouped inside the Shifa Hospital and are using it to command attacks against Israel.
Once again, families have been forced to flee the area, war-weary, and now with fresh trauma. This young boy says, "We were sleeping when they started bombing. They shelled our home and there was shooting. Afterwards, they let us out. They undressed the men and took them to the tanks." For Gazans, no escape from the desolation and the danger. If they don't die of Israel's bombardment, they may soon die of hunger. Orla Gearin, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Detectives have marked the 15th anniversary of the disappearance of Claudia Lawrence with a plea for anyone with information to break their silence. The chef was reported missing after failing to report for work at York University in March 2009. Police have carried out 2 investigations and questioned 9 people, but no charges have ever been brought. The public spending watchdog has warned that a low uptake of heat pumps is slowing progress on cutting emissions. The National Audit Office says sales will have to increase 11-fold if the government is to achieve its targets. Ministers want to install 600,000 low-carbon heat pumps each year by 2028. Councils in England say they're now spending an average of 2/3 of their budgets on vital services for adults and children. A BBC Panorama investigation has found that the cost per head of children's services alone has risen by 77% in a decade. Councils say they want an honest discussion with the government about future funding, but ministers say additional money has been given. Here's Alison Holt.
Several times a day, Janelle struggles up and down the stairs to the hotel room where she and her small children have lived for 7 months. They lost their home in a no-fault eviction. Her local council, Havering and Greater London, placed them here.
At this moment, I'm just in autopilot. Every day is just a set of different challenges, but I am trying to keep strong because there's nothing else. It's either this or being on the street.
Homelessness has become a major financial pressure for Havering, one of the reasons the council has been fighting against going bust. It's had to house 500 families in hotels like this in the past year. 5 years ago, there were none.
Let's just have a little look around the room. You've got a double bed, a single bed, and a bathroom there.
Yes, and some closet space there.
OK.
For 5 months, BBC Panorama has followed Havering as it struggled to balance the needs of people like Janelle against the council's deep financial problems. Cathy Freeman, the Chief Financial Officer, has been searching for cuts and savings, but they have a budget overspend of more than £50 million over 12 months. The council leader is Ray Morgan of the Residents' Association.
It just shows the scale of the problem. It's the most challenging budget that I've seen.
But at the end of the day, we do have to consider all of these really difficult decisions.
The problem is many people think, well, obviously council tax primarily went to pay for cleaning their streets, repairing their roads, providing libraries, making sure their parks were in good order, trees were maintained. But no, it's not.
On average, councils in England now spend 2/3 of their budgets on children's services and adult social care.
Can we just start with what your relationship is to the child?
With analysis showing per head spending on children's services alone up by 77% in a decade.
Can we just discuss this one?
Like many authorities, Havering's population has grown whilst money from central government has reduced.
We've been cutting back council services for the last decade or more now. The position is unsustainable, it's untenable. So we're not sticking our heads in the sand. We want people to listen.
This is my letter to the Minister.
In early March, the government told Havering it could borrow up to £54 million to avoid going bust. It says it's given local authorities extra funding and they're responsible for their own finances. Janelle was moved to a hostel last week, but the pressures remain and councils argue a rethink of how services are paid for is vital. Alison Holt, BBC News.
Now, is it or isn't it? After much speculation, the elusive street artist Banksy has confirmed this mural that suddenly appeared on the side of a building in Finsbury Park in North London is his latest creation. And Ellie Price has more details.
It's not that impressive close up, but it all makes sense when you see it with the tree. When Banksy comes to town, so does everyone else. A treat for the locals who just happen to be passing.
I think it's amazing, honestly. I've always known about Banksy's artwork. I didn't actually know that there was going to be one so close to home, so yeah, really nice to see.
I think it's incredible. We were just out on a little morning walk and just happened to stumble across it, and I think it's wonderful.
I came inside the house and I started calling the children, wake up, something is going on out there.
Even by this morning, the artwork had already attracted international interest. They'd heard about it watching telly in the hotel.
So we just took the bus. We're leaving in 2 hours, but we just came here to see it.
Locals told us that the wall got its makeover in the early hours of yesterday morning. And here's another thing they noticed. The green of the leaves is the same colour as Islington Council's signage. Experts reckon Banksy's message is an obvious environmental one.
This is a particularly big thing because of its scale and because of the clarity of the message and the fact that it exists in this built environment in a really clever and smart way.
Also pleased it exists here is the local MP, who came to see it as soon as he heard.
Already it's put us on the map. Finsbury Park has got a Banksy. The wall clearly needed repainting anyway, so Banksy's just helping out.
Banksy kept fans waiting for more than a day before claiming this work. Confirmation it is the real deal will only attract more visitors to Finsbury Park's greenest tree.
The local MP likes it. What happens to it now?
Well, that's kind of the buzz, isn't it, around it, Clive? What does happen to these things? You may remember the last one that was found in South London. Now, that lasted just an hour before someone took it down in broad daylight. Also in broad daylight, in fact, in front of a packed auction house was this iconic painting that shredded itself in its own frame shortly after it was sold. And then, of course, there was 10 years ago, there was slave labour. Now, that was chipped off the building that it was on. The owners thought it would be a good idea to try and sell that one at auction. Didn't go down terribly well with the local population who didn't really want it sold. I've got to say, I've been to Finsbury Park today, as I say, seen it in real life. It's there on a 30-foot wall with a great big tree in front of it. I suspect it's there to stay.
All right, OK. Ellie, many thanks. Ellie Price there. Now for a look at the weather news. And Ben, as it is. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Clive. Thank you very much indeed. Good evening. It's not quite a Banksy, but a nice enough picture from one of our weather watchers in South Wales with some hazy sunshine overhead, not too far away from Barry Island, where this picture was taken. Temperatures in Cardiff got up to 16 degrees Celsius. So a mild start to the week. But by the end of the week, it is going to feel much, much colder as northerly winds develop. And along the way, we'll see some wind and some rain. This is the rain we're expecting to accumulate through this week. You can see the wettest weather up towards the north and the west. Parts of western Scotland easily seeing more than 50 millimetres of rain. And with the ground so wet right now, well, that could well bring some further flooding impacts. We will see outbreaks of rain pushing eastwards overnight tonight. In fact, some really blustery and thundery showers in northern Scotland. Wind gusts of more than 50 miles per hour in the far north, but really mild overnight, 8, 9 or 10 degrees. So a mild start to tomorrow morning. We will see quite a lot of cloud at first, some bits and pieces of rain, but I think increasing amounts of sunshine developing through the day. There will be 1 or 2 showers as well. And then late in the day, we'll see cloud and rain pushing in towards the southwest of England. But underneath those sunny skies, it's going to be another mild day for the time of year, 12 to 16, maybe 17 degrees Celsius. Now, as we move through tomorrow evening, we'll see this rain pushing its way northwards and eastwards. That is another dose of rain through Tuesday night and into Wednesday with this frontal system. And then behind me, there are more weather fronts pushing in from the Atlantic to bring wet and windy weather through the day on Thursday. But as all of these different weather fronts move through, by the end of the week, look at the winds. They come down from the north and introduce something significantly colder. Now, with the strength of the wind, there will be a significant wind chill as we head through the end of the week and into the weekend. Those temperatures dropping away. And yes, there are signs that over high ground in the north of the UK, there could be some wintry showers. I hope you haven't put your warm weather clothes away just yet. Back to you, Clive.
Some people don't mind the rain, Ben, and I ain't one of them. That's it. I'll be back at 10, but you can keep up with all the latest developments on the BBC website. Now, let's join our colleagues for all the news where you are. Bye for now.
Hello, good evening. I'm Roger Johnson. Welcome to North West Tonight. Monday evening, we're in a temporary home for a few weeks while the builders are in. Here's our top story. 7 men are jailed after mob violence outside an asylum seekers hotel in Knowsley. The judge said it had brought shame on the town of Kirby. Also tonight...
This smells like rotten onions. What is that smell?
A rotting stink, the landfill site, which is offending residents in Fleetwood. Cyclist Dame Laura Kenny retires. Britain's most successful female Olympian is leaving the saddle for the final time. The past and the present. Marjorie recalls wartime air raids, maybe not the ones you'd expect, and rails against mobile phones.
I don't think anybody under the age of, well, shall we say 16 should have one.
And what a pleasant start to the week. It felt lovely in the sunshine. Some of us got 15 degrees. Andy saw some good spells of sunshine. How are we doing tomorrow? Join me at the end of the programme. I'll give you all the details.
Seven men are starting prison sentences tonight after a protest outside a hotel housing asylum seekers turned into a riot. The judge at Liverpool Crown Court said the violent mob had brought shame on Kirby and the wider Merseyside area. Mairead Smith sent this from outside the court.
A violent and angry mob outside the Suites Hotel in Knowsley last year. This is the man who the judge described today as the self-appointed frontman. 61-year-old Brian McPadden from Kirby rallied others over several hours. There were gasps from the public gallery at Liverpool Crown Court today as he was sentenced to 3.5 years. Thomas Mills, who's 47, brought this banner to the protest that night and he was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months. The pair are among 7 men starting a total of 18 years in jail for their part in the violent disorder.
Bricks, bottles, paving slabs and fireworks were all fired at officers, and damage was caused to police vehicles, including one police carrier being set alight.
The events of that night stemmed from what police say was misinformation, speculation and rumours on social media after a video that appeared to show an asylum seeker asking a 15-year-old girl for her phone number and for a kiss. An 8th man, Harry Boynton, was given a suspended sentence of 16 months. His family covered their heads as they left court today. This hotel is now running as a regular business, but in February last year it was home to 150 asylum seekers. And it was outside this hotel that almost 300 people gathered in what was described as a violent mob. Passing sentence today, the judge in this case said that what happened here brought shame to the town of Kirby, the borough of Knowsley and the wider Merseyside area. This is the remains of the police van after it was set alight that night. A number of other vehicles were damaged and 3 police officers were injured.
As they were being pelted with missiles, they remained professional and managed to restore order in a short period of time.
Merseyside police say they hope the sentencing sends a clear message of zero tolerance towards this kind of behaviour. Mairead Smith, BBC Northwest Tonight, Kirby.
A Liverpool student has been sent to a Young Offenders Institute and will be detained for 13 years after saying he wanted to kill 50 people. Jacob Graham was cleared of planning a bombing attack but was convicted of possessing and sharing terrorist material between May 2022 and May 2023. The judge said he was dangerous with clear terrorist intentions, as Ian Haslam reports.
I just don't see it as my choice, I see it as my destiny, my call. Yes, I need to do this, because who will?
Jacob Graham made more than 100 videos from his bedroom at his mother's home in Norris Green. Using the name Destro the Destroyer, he claimed he wanted to kill at least 50 people. In the house, police found chemicals used to make explosives and various weapons.
It's a nice bit of kit.
Graham also shared a guide on using bombs, guns and poisons. He told the jury his activities were just escapism and fantasy. They disagreed.
I am satisfied that you are a dangerous offender. I am satisfied that there is a significant risk to members of the public of serious harm by you committing serious specified terrorism offences.
I also want to educate people on how anybody could do this, anybody with a motive.
The courts heard Graham blame the government for his unsatisfactory life. He also spoke of feeling wronged by his college and ecological concerns and claimed he wanted to finish what US terrorist Theodore Kaczynski, known as the Unabomber, had started.
You know, if the news gets out there that there's been a bombing and stuff, and then like my name comes out, people will start searching me.
His actions were extremely dangerous. Other individuals could have accessed that material and gone on to conduct their own terrorist attacks. And the seriousness of that offence has been reflected by the sentence that's been handed down by the court today.
Police also today reiterated what they describe as the growing threat of online extremism in cases like this.
Depending on your circumstances, you can sometimes get put down the rabbit hole, as it were, to the point where you are existing in an echo chamber online where negative emotions are reinforced, where grievances are fueled, and where in some instances there is incitement to violence, which some people, depending on their real life circumstances, end up taking to heart.
Graham showed no reaction to his sentence, but later smiled at his mother in the public gallery, who had burst into tears as he was jailed. Ian Haslam, BBC Northwest Tonight.
An investigation is underway into why 2 NHS patients had to wait almost a week in A&E in Lancashire. The Lancashire and South Cumbria Integrated Care Board is refusing to say which hospital or hospitals were involved. It says that the cases were complex and not routine emergency admissions. A man who was hit and killed as he tried to stop thieves from stealing his car in Manchester has been named as Christopher Hanley. The 57-year-old's family say that they are heartbroken at the loss of a devoted family man who adored his grandchildren. 2 men have been questioned, one on suspicion of murder, after Saturday's incident in Beswick. just over a week since the start of Ramadan, a month-long celebration, of course, for Muslims across the world. But police are warning gangs of thieves are targeting Muslim households for gold jewellery, breaking in while families visit relatives or go to the mosque more often. They've stepped up patrols as a result in Oldham and in Rochdale, where there has been a spike in thefts. Here's our social affairs correspondent, Abby Jones.
When I saw that CCTV, my heart dropped. I didn't expect to see 3 men covered in balaclavas walking through my house, a place I consider my sanctuary.
The men, brandishing screwdrivers, ransacked this family home in Rochdale, turning the security camera around when they spotted it recording them. Their target was gold.
They went through everything. They looked through cupboards, they flipped pillows over, they flipped couch cushions over. They didn't take electronics, they didn't take expensive tablets, computers.
This homeowner wants to share his story to warn others during Ramadan, but is too frightened to show his face for fear the thieves might return.
There's a lot of word going around in the community of thieves entering homes looking for gold. Muslim people will become more of a target for these types of things. They go to pray at mosques 5 times a day, and that just leaves the home more vulnerable.
This gold jewellery was taken in a burglary in Ashton-under-Lyne last year. Since last August, more than £1 million of family gold has been stolen in Greater Manchester.
This is a crime that really affects communities, and the type of valuables that they're targeting, which is family gold. I mean, it's sentimental value. It's being passed from generation to generations. So the value that's being taken, it's very difficult to put a monetary value to this.
Police say this is a targeted crime with often gangs wrecking homes. They check to see whether there are decorations outside and whether people are regularly going in and out of their houses in the evening. Greater Manchester Police has increased its patrols and is also knocking on doors to warn householders.
Hello. Hi. Hello. Hi. I'm PC Latif.
Offering advice like leaving lights on and storing gold away from the home.
It's like a worrying thing, this time of the year. When we go to mosque, we should be concentrating on what's going on in mosque to our prayers. But in the back of the head, we're thinking that, I left my house empty, maybe someone's going to try breaking in.
The thieves caught on this CCTV weren't able to find what they were looking for, but their actions have had a devastating effect on the family whose home they broke into.
Every single noise keeps reminding us of that time. We lock everything because these thieves, they're clever. They will scout out your house. They know when you're in, they know when you're leaving.
Abby Jones, BBC North West Tonight, Rochdale.
There's lots more on the BBC News website for you tonight, including Barrow Council says that it will fund swimming lessons at the town's leisure centre after 2 rescues at half-term raised issues about swimming competencies in the area. Edale Mountain Rescue Team were called to help a climber who fell from Stanage Edge in the Peak District at the weekend. And Lancaster City Council has supported calls for a new station in Morecambe to support attractions like the Eden Project Morecambe. Those stories and many more online tonight at bbc.co.uk/news or, of course, as always, via the BBC News app. Luckily, it's not smelly vision because Lancashire residents who live near this landfill site, which has recently reopened, say that the smell coming from it is making their lives unbearable. Transwaste has uncapped part of the landfill site in Fleetwood to modernise the site, but residents say that methane gas and odours which are escaping into the surrounding area are making them ill. Jonas Muller has this report.
For half a century, waste was dumped here for landfill. That's before the site in Fleetwood was closed in 2017. But it was reopened after room for more waste was found and planning permission was given. Harbour Village is a nearby housing estate. Almost 2 months ago, life started becoming very uncomfortable for its residents.
You'll come out and the air is really heavy with a strong stench of rotten onions. And that could be any time of the day.
They believe the odour is making them ill.
It doesn't smell like a normal tip. A normal tip smells like your bin or a lot of sulphides, rotten eggs, things like this. This smells like rotten onions. What is that smell?
My mum, she has emphysema and COPD. She's on oxygen 15 hours a day. So it concerns me about her health, what's actually in the air.
Transwaste acquired this site last year, and the company says it's had to carry out extensive work to bring it up to modern standards. The temporary work has meant uncovering waste before it could be permanently capped. That area has seen installation of pinwells to capture methane and odours. But the position of this area has meant odours have escaped into the surrounding areas.
Yeah, I love the town council bit because you do all...
Lorraine Beavers is a Lancashire County councillor. She says the site should never have been allowed to reopen.
It's really hard for you to recap it and to control the methane gases in the directions they're going. What is it going to be like in the summer, you know, in August? You've got the wildlife, we're on a nature reserve, it's beautiful around here.
The Environment Agency has sent in officers and is monitoring the smell, and adds if this continues to impact the local community, we will not hesitate to take a regulatory action.
I have been calling the Environment Agency at least twice a day for the last 6-7 days, because they keep saying to me the more we report, the more the Environment Agency will come out.
Transwaste says it can't comment on individual health concerns.
I have gone into their website and tried to get in touch, but there was no reply for Transwaste because I did invite them to come on the meeting on the 8th. Still no comeback from them.
Residents will make their case at a town council meeting later this month. Eunice Muller, BBC North West Tonight, Fleetwood.
We'll continue to follow that story. Oh, look who's here. Richard is...
I feel like I've walked into someone's house by accident, someone else's house, right?
It's quite small, isn't it? It's quite cosy.
Anyway,
we're going to talk about the FA Cup in a minute, but first of all, I can almost touch Laura Kenny in this studio, it's so small. She's called it a day.
She has, yeah. Dame Laura Kenny, who's called, as you know, Cheshire and the North West home for many years, has decided to call time on her remarkable career to spend more time with her young family. With 5 gold medals, the 31-year-old is Britain's most successful female Olympian, married to Bolton's Olympic cyclist Sir Jason Kenny, who also has a record medal haul. She's decided the time is right to hang up her bike.
Laura Trott is Britain's most successful female Olympian of all time.
For me now, it feels like the right time. Just the sacrifice you make when you have children and just leaving them behind. And this to me just felt like a sacrifice too far.
You were determined, weren't you, to show that you could be a mum and compete at the very highest level. Because you did that, Laura, is that part of what made you feel different after having Monty?
With Albie, I was just totally in. There's proof to so many people that it can happen. But then with Monty, I think because of all the troubles that I had even conceiving Monty, I think that has had a bigger part to play in it than I ever really anticipated. Having children is a privilege, it's not a given. And I think I've realised that a lot more now. When we got knighted as well, it kind of felt like a ceiling, like it kind of felt like a cap. Like
Did it
was
like a moment?
Yeah.
You've done it?
Yeah, and it was just the most perfect day as well, with Jason and I getting them together.
And look at the face here, and young Laura Trott.
You've achieved so much, haven't you? If you were to look back at one moment though, Laura, what would that be?
London 2012.
Gold medal is going to go to Laura Trott, and I can't believe it.
Competing at home games, which I never thought I would be part of, to go on to win 2 gold medals, and then obviously Jason and I come out and say that we're together. It was just 2 weeks of absolute perfection.
People look at you as an extremely successful cyclist. You've been in the public eye for a long time, but how do you view yourself, Laura?
I'm just still that little girl that got on a bike. I'd like to think that I haven't changed since then. And it's funny because obviously like social media is going mental and I'm trying to like flick through them and I'm like, who are they talking about? Because it just doesn't feel like me, you know.
You're going to have quite a cycling team as a family, aren't you, when the boys grow up?
Except he hates riding a bike. Albie literally hates riding a bike.
Does he?
Yeah. He's more of a tennis player at the minute.
Obviously you're going to spend more time with the family, but have you got other plans?
I'd like to give back to the younger generation. I guess working alongside like the media or whatever, I really enjoy that.
I'm sure you won't be short of offers, Laura, that's for sure. Might we see you in Paris, either with the team or doing something?
I mean, I hope so, yeah.
How much have you enjoyed living and bringing up your family here?
Oh, I love it, honestly. Like, Cheshire has my heart through and through. My family have been made up here, you know. Like, obviously, I met Jason up here. We've been based up here since 2010. and I just love everything about it. I just feel like it is home. I mean, in fact, I moved my whole family up. So when Albie came along, my mum and dad have now come up too.
Brilliant.
So yeah, we're all in Cheshire now, and my sister as well, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Well, it's great to have you in the Northwest,
Thanks.
Dame Laura. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank
Don't
you.
move, by the way. Make sure you stay.
I will.
And best of luck with everything that comes next.
Thank you. Thanks.
What a remarkable career she's had. Now, we could have another All-Manchester FA Cup final after both United and City made it through to the last four. City take on Chelsea. United will play Championship side Coventry after a dramatic 4-3 win over Liverpool at Old Trafford yesterday. A victory that was as big for United's boss as it was for the fans, as Phil Cunliffe reports.
But a few things better in football than a last gasp winner against your fiercest rivals. And this really was the late show. Amad Diallo's shot finding the net with just 10 seconds left to settle a ding-dong FA Cup tie.
Manchester United season is still alive.
Despair for Liverpool, but a turning point in the season for Manchester United.
This could be that moment where we that the team get really the belief and the energy that they can do amazing things. And I think when you can beat Liverpool in the way we did, you can beat any opponent.
And you can excuse United supporters for getting all carried away, like 10-year-old Alfie and his dad Pete. Their tears of joy have been seen by millions across the world.
To beat your rivals with a last-minute winner, no better feeling. The atmosphere were electric, and when we kept scoring, it was so happy. And the last goal to make it win, I couldn't hold my tears back. I was so joyful.
So it's just nice that we've still got something to look forward to the rest of the season.
United fans might have sounded a little hoarse this morning, including Radio Manchester's United commentator, who admits he lost it.
Where did that rank then on the screamometer for you?
Oh, it's off the scale. The screamometer isn't working anymore. I think it's the best game of football I've ever seen.
Twice, Liverpool nearly won this quarter-final. Mo Salah gave them a 2-1 first-half lead before they were pegged back. In extra time, Harvey Elliott put them 3-2 up, only for Marcus Rashford to equalise.
And sometimes losing games like this can have a hangover effect. It won't for Liverpool because they have too many big games to come. They have too much big game experience. And they'll use this as a resource to drive them on.
Of course, the same will be said of United, who now face Coventry at Wembley in the semi-finals. Eric Ten Hag's position is under scrutiny, but then again, so was Alex Ferguson's when he first took over. Fergie's job was reportedly saved by an FA Cup goal from Mark Robbins before his side lifted the trophy in 1990, and the rest is history. Ten Hag will be hoping that yesterday's result will do the same for him. Phil Cunliffe, BBC North West Tonight.
What a game it was. Manchester City's progress, though, to the semi-finals was more comfortable. A routine 2-0 victory over Newcastle. City, the first side in FA Cup history to reach 6 successive FA Cup semi-finals, with 2 goals from Bernardo Silva, the difference at the Etihad Stadium. In the Premier League, relegation threatened Burnley came away with a vital 2-1 win at home to Brentford. To the WSL now, and only goal difference separates Manchester City women from leaders Chelsea after a dominant 4-1 victory at Brighton. Manchester United and Liverpool also won. And in Rugby League Super League, Lee Leopards got off the mark with a thumping 54-4 victory at Hull FC, with Warrington Wolves also notching up more than 50 points to storm to the top of the table. Wire hammered London 58-4 to join Wigan, St Helens and Catalans on 8 points. Josh Thulis and Matt Duffy scoring hat-tricks. Best of luck, Roger, as well to Stockport County tonight. Could go to within 2 points of League Two leaders Mansfield if they can beat Crawley.
Fingers crossed, they're going well. Richard, thank you very much. Right, before the weather with Kay in our cosy little studio, you might remember last month we featured these two. Twins, Thelma and Elmer. At 105, they'd just moved into the same care home in Lancashire, and after the end of that interview, I asked whether there were any other centenarians with interesting stories to tell. Well, thank you, because we had lots of suggestions. We're really grateful to everybody who wrote in. We are working our way through them all. The first one tonight, I've just been to see Marjorie Hodnett, who is even older than the twins. Have a look.
My full name is Marjorie Ethel Hodnett, and on Easter Monday, which is bank holiday, I will be 110.
She may be 110 in a fortnight, but Marjorie is still as sharp as a pin. She moved to Formby to be nearer to family just before the pandemic.
I was born in Harleston, then we moved to Wembley. You may have heard of that.
Indeed.
And I remember the trees being cut down to make way for the stadium, and I remember that stadium going up. And of course, those two towers were known all over the world, but they couldn't be kept because they were not built of brick or stone, they were made of concrete, and so they just had to be broken up. Now it looks like any other stadium with a great...
You're not a fan of the arch?
No, I'm not fond of the arch.
Marjorie was born just before the outbreak of the First World War. She has a vague memory of her father going off to the front, but has a more distinct recollection of the conflict coming closer to home.
When there was an air raid, we had kept a mattress under our big dining room table, and I can remember, and I kept hearing Zeppelin, Zeppelin, Zeppelin. I thought, oh, that's a nice word, and that's the first word I learnt to say.
Marjorie's dad returned, but so many didn't.
Oh, there were so many killed in that First World War. It was an absolute massacre. People have gone through so much for us. I think when the women were trying to get votes, I think they were actually tortured sometimes. Women had a rotten time. They really did. People can be very kind. They can also be very cruel.
Marjorie married twice. Both her husbands died young, and she spent her working life in the classroom.
I was a teacher when I was a child. One of my first birthday presents was a blackboard and easel.
The world has changed significantly over the 11 decades Marjorie's been alive. When I asked her the biggest change she's seen, the question barely left my mouth.
Mobile phones.
Right.
I think they're a menace. I don't think anybody under the age of, well, shall we say 16 should have one. They've got to get to know people as human beings, not things on a phone.
The whole point of this series is to hear the memories and wisdom of those who are older than most of us. How about this from Marjorie?
Always take whatever opportunity presents itself, because you'll always go on wondering what would have happened if I hadn't taken this opportunity.
Marjorie certainly knows her mind and won't be put off celebrating her birthday when it falls on a bank holiday.
Well, I don't care what they say. They say I have to celebrate it on Tuesday. No, that's not my birthday. My birthday's on Easter Monday and it's bank holiday, and that's when I'm going to celebrate it.
Quite right too, Marjorie. You tell them. She was amazing, wasn't she? Absolutely razor sharp, Kate. Mentally so clever.
I
so
can't
switched
believe. I struggle sometimes to remember what I did last week.
I know.
Never mind.
And she, honestly, her recollections are so vivid and just incredible.
And we share the same birthday.
Do you?
I'm an April Fool. That explains a lot.
Are you?
Yeah.
Who would have guessed?
Right, weather-wise, it's been a bit of a treat today, I thought. I actually left the house in a blazer, a sure sign of spring to come. But don't be fooled, because temperatures are going to drop by the end of the weekend. I'll come to that in a minute. This is how it looked on a morning walk in St Helens, and actually it's here where we got 15 degrees, so really pleasant. And alongside that in Cheshire, again, we got 15, just about 15.4 degrees. It did feel nice, but you can see on this photograph that line of cloud, it rolled in, and that's associated with a cold front that's pushing it our way. And that is going to introduce rain tonight. It'll then give us some showers for first thing tomorrow morning, but it improves as we head through the day. You can see it here on the pressure chart. The isobars more tightly squeezed, so it's going to be a blustery night. That will clear through and it should be fine for a good deal of tomorrow before the next front pushes up with further rain overnight into Wednesday. So out and about at the minute, cloud continues to thicken. Already some spots of rain for the Isle of Man. The rain sweeps across all parts, dry for a time, and then showers to end the night. Now these showers could be quite sharp. By about 5 o'clock in the morning, gusts of between 20 and 30 miles per hour, but it will be windier than that around midnight, so just take it easy if you are commuting overnight. 10 degrees on average the low, so not cold, no frost, but showers to start tomorrow morning off with. They'll clear through. It brightens up quite nicely. 1 or 2 showers into the afternoon, but few and far between, so unlucky if you see them. Plenty of sunshine, and again it's going to be more southern parts that get to 15 degrees. Now I'm just going to scoot ahead over to the weekend. We hold on to the mild conditions for a time. By Saturday we pull down this cold blue air, and that does mean Saturday itself is going to feel much colder, chilly Arctic air, and any showers that come through are likely to be wintry in nature. And that, Roger, is your forecast.
Well, don't fall over, it's not far to walk now, is it?
Getting up close and turn.
Very cosy, isn't it? So we're in here for 8 weeks, as we've said a couple of times. A few people, sorry about the sound issues we had earlier on. And then we will have a lovely brand new studio, which we're very excited about. Yeah, something to look forward to. Thank you for your company. As always, have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Take care.
It's time to get down to business.
Right, let's go and get a deal. Come on.
9 million for the house.
The wig's going to fly off in a minute.
We're not going to let them down. Teamwork. We all did a bit. No, it wasn't teamwork.
Chill out for a minute. You're fired.
The Apprentice continues Thursday at 9 on BBC One and iPlayer.
Welcome to the semi-finals of Gladiators.
Who will have the speed and skill
Unbelievable!
to make it to our grand final?
What a terrific semi-final!
The Gladiators semi-finals. Continued Saturday at 5:50 on BBC One and iPlayer.
Welcome to Monday night on BBC One. Christy with you live. There must be some fancy footwork going on because Anton and Giovanni are setting off on their adventures in Spain at 9, and they're also here now on the sofa. What are you boys up to?